Hey guys, welcome to YesUsers Podcast. I'm your host Avinash Tripathi, and today we have a special guest who has left an indelible mark on the hospitality industry. His journey is nothing short of inspiring, and we are thrilled to have him here as our guest. Please join me as we welcome Mr. Vivek Gangishetty. So, listeners, stay tuned as we dive deeper into Vivek's journey, strategies, and his vision for the future. Whether you are a seasoned industry expert or just starting out, there is something valuable for everyone. So, without wasting any time, let's get started. So, Vivek, thanks a lot for joining us today on the Yes Users podcast.
Hi, Avi. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Gives me a great pleasure to be here as well.
We hope so. Let's see what is your opinion after we are done with the recording. But so, Vivek, there's a lot of listeners who don't know anything about you. So, for them, would you like to give them a very short and crisp introduction of yourself?
I think I put myself as somebody who has worked within hospitality and moved and transited into technology as a service. Now, it was very interesting for me to start with hospitality because I've completed a course in hospitality, nothing that I chose to become there, but I've done bachelor's in computers, completed education, formal education in hospitality, started working in various hotels, understood what are the nuances of how hoteliering would go through. And probably after about 10 years or so, I realized that technology is going to slowly take over. So I transited myself into hospitality technology. And it's been a great learning. I mean, ideally, one would have only understanding of one industry, knowledge of one large industry. But being in the current role, I think I can experience both worlds. So about 20 years, great learning experiences, great mentors. It's been great as of now.
Wow. Thanks for giving that context. It really makes sense. I'll ask this question. A lot of people who are in hospitality industry, they are not too happy with their job. Like that's the general, or should I say majority opinion. Do you agree or disagree with this?
Look, if you're not happy with what you're doing, you'll never be happy with what you're doing. I know it's a kind of a diplomatic answer to what you're
Right.
asking.
It is. It is.
But But when I started working in hospitality, I was put into cleaning utensils. I mean, in a pot
Yeah.
wash. I mean, who would love to do a pot wash? Nobody wants to do that. I mean, it's up to you. How do you adapt yourself and what is your longer vision going to be? I mean, there's always going to be sacrifices in the short term if you want to grow, in long term. But that's the way life is. And anybody who's unhappy, I would only tell them to motivate yourself to be happy again. So that's in your hand.
Right. But that kind of makes sense. But do you feel like generally, like on a general level, if I'm speaking to 10 people in say XYZ industry and I'm speaking to 10 people in hospitality industry, there's a higher chances that people in the hospitality industry are not happy with their current job. And I know you answered that question. My question would be, do you think any systematic reason for it is there is a gap between what they expected their life to be and what they are actually doing? Is there any systematic reason for this?
I think so. There are two primary reasons that I see. One is the functionality within the job. So you are a lot of times consumer facing. So you speak to a lot of clients. And if you're introvert, you would really not like that positions to go and speak to new people always. So it depends on what outlook do you have. But also the generation. I've got an 11-year-old kid. If you ask me, would he ever want to come to hospitality? I don't think he would ever want to come to hospitality unless he wants to become a chef and get into his kitchen and start working. That's a nice career option. But, honestly, the cultural sort of upbringing also makes a lot of difference. We would ideally want to sit at a place, work in an IT environment, do a 9 to 6 job, come back, have your life after that, which is absolutely fine. But hospitality runs into about 16 to 18 hours of job. And if you treat it like a job, as I told you, it's going to be very difficult for you to survive. If you treat it like a lifestyle, I think you would start loving it.
I know you sell to hospitality industry, so I'll not poke any further. Off the record, we'll talk about this.
Absolutely.
Right.
I had probably, opinions will not differ, but I've given
Yeah. Absolutely, Vivek.
in my mother, so
It's a demanding job. I completely agree. And to be honest, like a lot of people are not prepared for it. So this is what brings me to the follow-up question. Let's assume there are a lot of people who are not happy with their job in hospitality. So you have made that transition from hospitality to sales. So what would be your advice to people like them?
So anybody who's listening to this podcast and looking at what we're doing, my suggestion is to start learning where do you want to go.
Yeah.
When I came into hospitality, I was at the back end. I was probably working within the operations team. But I knew that I'd want to go to sales. So for the transition to happen, you would require a lot of learning to be done and in the right path. So you'd want to understand how the sales works and what are the nitty-gritties of working in a sales team. What is the science behind a sales team? What is an art behind a sales team? How do you interact with the client? So these are all something that you'd want to learn, but also a lot of curriculum. So it's very important for you to understand that and plan yourself. And if you can plan yourself, and I'm sure if somebody who sells tea can become a prime minister,
Right.
I'm making a political statement, but it's possible.
Right.
It's rocket science. And I think people who are working in hospitality would make a better technology salespeople because they know how the industry works.
Right.
If they go in front of a general manager or a managing director of a company, they would understand how a service would work. They'd understand how a reception would work. They'd understand how a concierge would work.
Right.
So advantage is on your side. It's just that the learning needs to come in and then you grow from there.
No, absolutely makes sense. Like, especially if you are selling in the hospitality industry. But one thing I've observed, people who are coming from hospitality industry, and this shift I saw in huge numbers, especially after COVID. Because after COVID, what happened is that hospitality industry was one of the hitters, and edtech was absolutely on boom, especially the online. So I saw a lot of people shifting from hospitality to edtech. Even I hired a couple of them. One thing I observed is that because they had that consumer-facing role for 3-4 years, so they usually have a lot better etiquette at handling customers than a regular MBA guy I would be hiring. So if somebody wants to make a transition from hospitality to vanilla sales, right? They are not going specifically into selling to hospitality. What would be your advice? What they can do right now?
So as you rightly said, consumer facing, believe me, it gives you a lot of advantage. How does sales work? Sales has got two large divisions to it. One is at the back end when you do a lot of groundwork to understand what client wants, which is the science behind a sale. And the second one is very important for you to understand is an art behind a sale. When you sit in front of a client, your artist should come out. You should be able to speak. You should be able to make them understand. And most of the times what happens is if you're not customer facing, you would not be able to put yourself or put your thought to a perspective. So obviously they have a lot of advantage. A lot of hoteliers have a lot of advantage. But again, learning is something that should happen. So you got the artistic sort of culture within you, but you also need to have that science where you need to understand, sit back and understand how the industry works. If you're going to a technology company, if you go to a pharma company, you need to understand how pharma works, how the medicines are made, so that you can have that conversations with the clients. Obviously, yes.
Wise word, understanding the product is the first thing as a sales guy you need to do. With your extensive experience in the hospitality industry, could you share a pivotal moment that really shaped your career?
The pivotal moment actually happened when I was in UK. So we were both managers. We were handling sales and front office. And there was this person who's just come in, who's a Brit, who's from UK, who joined about 4 months back. And when the next position opened, which is probably one of us need to be promoted, the other person promoted because of the skin color. And, honestly, I would not blame the hotels because when you're facing customer, they would ideally want you to be presentable and probably be part of their ecosystem. That's when I realized if you'd want to do something strategic, you'd want to come back to India. Although I had immigrations on, another 1 year in UK, I would probably get a PR and get into sort of UK citizenship. But I decided to come back primarily to ensure that one, contribute to your own society. And the amount of opportunities that India has is unbelievable. And I always believed in that. That's the reason why we kind of sought India together, even with the present company that we are. And then we moved region. So it's been one of the toughest lessons to learn, but a lot of kind of life-changing challenge that was thrown across.
Thanks for sharing that story. I can completely understand this. You might not be comfortable sharing that. So,
see, until the hard...
It's a reality, right?
It's reality, and until the hard truths are spoken, it's very difficult for you to come out and say, guys, and I'm talking about 2004. Times have changed. In 20 years, most of these companies, most of the Western world has now become very inclusive. I'm talking about where it was still a stringent, I may say, preferential treatment.
Do you believe this is more dominant in consumer-facing role? They are very happy with Indians getting tucked away in the IT department. But with consumer-facing roles, do you feel there is...
I think that is changing to a large extent. Because as I said, there are two broad kind of divisions in sales. One, being artistic, which is going in front of client and speaking, but also a lot of science behind it. I mean, you can't really sit across somebody like a Dr. Reddy's and don't understand what do they do. Till the time you don't understand, they're the largest oncology related medicine that they sell. You'll not be able to strike those conversations. You might be one of the best seller, but if you do not understand what your consumer is looking at, and if you don't match their requirement, the sale is going to fall flat. That's where I think a lot of people are now considering Indian origin, or especially within this region where it used to be strongly within Singapore, where Southeast Asia was dominated. In terms of marketing, is now moving slowly to India. If you observed over last 7 or 8 years, most of them have now moved to India.
Okay, that's really nice. So you brought about, sales and marketing. So in your experience, what is the most effective hack or technique that you have learned which drives revenue growth, which is doing tremendously well, for instance, RMS Cloud?
Although RMS was operational for 40 years, it's been with hospitality technology for 40 years now, more of a traditional setup. RMS was the pioneer in moving into cloud enablements within hospitality. So they were the first ones to go to hotels and say, look, why do you want to have redundant IT infrastructure? Why do you have a server room? Why do you want to connect everything? You move on to cloud and it's more secure and all you have to do is just basic internet.
Yeah.
Well, that's largely adapted towards the Australasia region. India started off very late. We kind of started in 2017 in terms of the cloud enablements. What worked in India is obviously to listen to a lot of client stories. Our first year went in understanding what is exactly the client looking for. Like one of the large clients that we have had a different tiering of the membership. So they had purple membership, the red membership, blue membership, and they had to have certain amount of rooms blocked for them throughout the year. And this was something no traditional PMS would give or a hotel technology company would give. And the rest they would want to distribute in spaces like Make My Trip and Go Everywhere, etc. Now, what we've done is our architecture is very open. So we've got a solution to them.
Right.
So, look, you can absolutely block off those inventory and sell. So their revenues have gone 3x in the first year that they took us. And that's over 100 crore revenue that we're talking about. And 3x is a huge jump. And if that is the value that we can give, that's something that I keep telling to my sales team as well, that keep listening. And if you ask me a quick hack for the sales team, listen to your clients. I mean, that's something that you would learn a lot from your clients, their issues that they're facing. And if you can give them a solution,
right,
with that would help you sell immediately.
Thanks for sharing that. Great insights there. See, you can listen to your clients, and obviously, when you are a sales leader of such a large organization, it's like, easy for you to get that foot into the door. People who are just starting out and want to do something in hospitality industry, how would they go about it? Like, how would they reach and understand the pain points of their users?
Hospitality is a very open industry. If you look at the larger clients, there will be about 50 or 60 of them.
Yeah.
There are industry events, which is free for everyone. And hospitality today would want you as a technology person to come and help them. There's this young startup company out of Singapore called the BotSpice. They're into conversational AI. And nobody in the industry knew what conversational AI was, how it would help customers. Now, what they've done is they've come to a few events and presented their entire product. I mean, obviously, they've done a lot of research before they could come. But as you said, initially, if you'd want to come, there are a lot of industry events like ITB India happens here. Come, network, hospitality people are the most warmest people that you could. Even the chairman of a company would open a door for you. That is how much open they are.
That's really interesting. You have worked for renowned names like Oyo, the Lalit, Royal Orchard. What is the unique problem or unique challenge that you have experienced while selling SaaS or technology solutions to these companies?
If I give you a broader picture, there are about 2.4 million available rooms in India every day. I'm talking purely to India, not going the region. Out of 2.4 million available...
Which company is this?
Overall
in India, we have like 2.4 million rooms.
2.4 million available rooms. And that's a structured market, not talking of alternate accommodations like Airbnbs, etc. I'm not even considering that. So 2.4 million is a large amount of rooms that are available. And through technology, people sell almost about 65% of their inventory, which is about 1.7 million. And that's the wherewithal that technology has.
Right.
But my point to most of the hoteliers selling SaaS to them was, do not limit yourself to garnering revenue as a traction. Also look at what you can do to enhance your operations. I mean, if you look at other industries like an airliner, like FMCG as a manufacturing units, they have ensured the technology enables, as SaaS platforms enable them to do it. If I can quote an example of airliner, you can do a pre-check-in before you could even go. All you have to do is just take a QR code, just get it.
Yeah.
Now, hotels will still have the queues to check in. They would take your ID. So kind of enabling the hoteliers to get all the pre-check-in done. All they have to do is just look at the room number that is available and check them in. That's sort of, enablement the technology would come. But the utilization of technology, if I put it holistically, it'll be about 20-25%. So I've been a strong advocate with all these hotel chains, including, we're implementing technology within Royal Orchid Hotels, as you said, where a guest can come, ask a lot of questions. What are the nearby places? Am I going to come there through a train? Do I need to book a cab? Is the cab available? All of these now are answered by a conversational AI platform. So the technology is available, the deployment doesn't happen. And technology is still old school, where the servers are there, they do not move into cloud. So what I would tell them is do away with a lot of redundant infrastructure. You don't have to put in some millions of rupees in your infrastructure. Put that on technologies which are alternative, which can give you one, customer satisfaction. The second one is to garner more traction in terms of revenue. So that's been my challenge, and we're probably getting there. We're able to convince hoteliers to start using latest technologies like the chat GPTs, etc., to sort of build into their own requirements.
Very interesting. You spoke about 2.4 million available rooms in India and 65% of that capacity getting booked by technology. So my question is, as a consumer, it is sometimes really hard for us to understand that we approach a hotel that we book through any technology partner. Is it like, platforms like, Make My Trip or something, or like aggregators, and they're not too happy with it. Why is that the case?
Because if you look at how hoteliers are,
right.
Take a small hotel of 100 rooms or 80 rooms, and if they're not branded into any of these large hotel chains like Lemon Tree or Royal Orchid, 80% of their business comes from channels and acquisition cost there is over 25%. So your customer acquisition within the industry is, if you're getting a revenue of 1,25,000 goes into acquiring these guests. So that's the reason most of the hotels are mostly unhappy. But what we've given them, and technology companies are now doing, is to give them an alternate bookable solutions, like their own booking engines, their own e-commerce platforms, where you can reduce that. So first or second time, you can still come through the OT, but you need to have that loyalty as well. So they're coming to you as a hotel. So how are you going to get that on? So are you engaging them enough? And if you can cut down from even 25% to about 15%, you have a great amount of saving there. So the technology is now available who are giving them algorithms to go back and use a lot of artificial intelligence to target the clients who are coming at that specific time and to understand how your demand is.
Right. That's really interesting. One thing that really surprised me, what is the business model of companies like Make My Trip, IBBO, or, these large platforms? How are they making money?
Yeah, travel consolidators. Out of that 1.6 million rooms that get sold in India, about 100,000 get sold on YesUsers and Make My Trip. They consolidated inventory. I still remember in 2004 or 5 when Make My Trip first came to our hotel, they asked us if we can give them some inventory, block some inventory. I was laughing and who's going to go online and buy your.
Yeah.
And from there, I truly want to apologize to the team who I really underestimated 20 years later. We realized the power of technology, and 80% of inventory is getting sold on channels. It's a very, very strong sort of channels that you've built. And even in that, 15 to 20% is your commission. You're talking about 1,000 rupees in average daily rate. Otherwise, SaaS fees remain 2% in other industries. You get in 25%. Even if you give 10% off to your client as a marketing campaign, you get another 15% on. So that's very clearly the business model. And honestly, they've done really well.
So this is what surprises me, because what happens is that, we go to these hotels and we say as a consumer, okay, you are selling this room for this much money on this platform. Why are you not directly giving me the same rate? So a lot of times when we say that, this is like, sir, wahin jaake book kar lo. Online hai to wahin jaake book kar lo. Why does that happen?
Very interesting. It's acquiring a client for Make My Trip and for YesUsers. If you look at it, they keep giving you the points back so that you use those platforms actively. That's the engagement. Now, what these platforms do ideally is, if they are giving discounts, so sometimes they put money from the pocket to acquire you as a new guest. So,
Right.
but if they put 1,000 rupees online and give a discount of 250 rupees, hotel will still get 1,000 rupees. It will not get 700 rupees. So minusing the commissions, what they would get at, obviously. Obviously, a hotelier standing there would never be able to give you that rate because the acquisition cost is borne by the channels. And that's acquired. I mean, if you look at roughly about 35 million is the user base.
Right.
YesUsers and Make My Trip put together. And to acquire that, obviously, you need to spend on marketing, you need to spend on a lot of CTRs, which ideally they're saying that, why should I be spending it? I'll give back to the client and anyway, they're going to book. So that's a fantastic strategy, which worked in India. Fortunately, not working outside India. So
Okay.
you'll have to wait and watch.
Why, like, we have Make My Trip? Other countries have like Booking.com or these guys. So did they use some other strategy to get that initial base?
Correct. So Booking.com, for example, the largest, if you look at a Booking.com or a Make My Trip, is Make My Trip, you're assured as a hotelier,
Right.
India is already taken. In
Right.
Booking.com, in India, you still have to leave the credit card to a large extent, but outside India, you just have to reserve.
Yeah.
Not have the guarantee. You do not know if the client is going to come, and if they come, when are they going to come? Are they going to pay through a credit card or a debit card? So your reservations would still not be very sure. I mean, but the pipelines might look pretty good, but a lot of times they don't come. They don't even show up at the. So that's been a large risk, which is covered by the Indian OTA market.
Right. Like, at least companies in India, does they promise some kind of a minimum guarantee that to a hotelier, you will get this much amount of money no matter what? Is this something they do?
Not the platforms like Make My Trip and GoIbibo, they don't do that. But platforms like Oyo, they do that. Oyo's strongest acquisition has been minimum guarantee. So they would go to a hotel, they obviously put a lot of science to it. There is an entire team which works behind to see what is a minimum guarantee. They'll come up with a solution that, okay, you're doing so much, we'll give you a minimum guarantee. So the owner is assured and they paid every month of a minimum. Over and above, if they make more money, they'd get a revenue share on top of it. That's how Oyo grew very, very quickly within these markets, which is risk-free for a lot of owners, get acquired by it.
Right, absolutely makes sense because, the Oyo's initial hypothesis was that these hotels are primarily run by people as a source of passive income. So they have kept a couple of people and they're not like actively managing it. So if you go there and give them the assured minimum guarantee, it will be really easy for them to switch. How was your experience working with Oyo?
It was tremendous. We had a lot of IIT Bombay students coming, and we've recruited about 300 people when I was there a couple of years to ensure that our distribution is taken care of for all the hotels across the world. And more than we imparting our knowledge to the new joinees, I was amazed with the amount of knowledge they would come. They would do their research very well. They would come, they would present to me what needs to be done from an affiliate marketing standpoint, what needs to be done at partnership standpoint, how can we improve our revenues, what kind of customer acquisitions are we running, what campaigns are working, what campaigns are not working, what promotions are working, what promotions are not working. So for me, as a person, it was a fantastic experience. Unfortunately, COVID did away with a lot of work that we put in. From a hotelier, it was a right balance between hoteliering and technology. So they got both the worlds together to get into a perfect mix in terms of distribution.
So I'm presuming you were working with Oyo when they were like 5-day working, or was it the 6-day working time? Although people don't know the switch when that happens, an inside story. So you were working when it was 5 days or 6 days?
It was a 5-day week when I. But Hitesh was of the great opinion that we should 4 days. So
that's what.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion? Should it be 5-day working or 6-day working?
Look, as long as, and I don't even care if it's 2-day working. I'm a salesperson, honestly. You get me the numbers, it doesn't really matter. But from an operational standpoint,
right,
that is a 24/7 sort of job.
Yeah.
From a strategic standpoint, if you look at it, if you cut down to a 4-day, you can accommodate more people into the industry, which is right now also a challenge to find this talent pool. As you rightly initially said, that people would ideally want to work for a technology company, not for a hospitality company. But eventually...
they didn't say that, but thanks for giving me the credit.
That's what you meant. Why would young people go to other industries and not to hospitality? They're not really happy with it. So, I mean, it's been that way.
Yeah, it is. It is quite demanding. I agree. The demanding nature that, 12 to 15 hours is a norm in the hospitality industry, right? Which is almost unheard of for any other profession. So that's definitely one of the reasons. why people are so unsatisfied with the hospitality industry?
I think now the times have really changed. I mean, people have become more professional. They do a 5-day week. Even the Indian chains have started a 5-day
Right.
week off because they understood that even family becomes really important for you to start taking care of. And I'm talking about Indian-owned companies,
Yeah.
the Lalit,
Yeah.
Lemon Tree. And if you look at the talent pool of Lemon Tree, and Mr. Keswani has done extremely great job in accommodating differently able people. So if you go to any of the Lemon Tree, you will see a lot of people with, who are differently able would come, would want to really enthusiastically serve you.
Yeah.
So I think the inclusiveness is coming to a large extent, and Lalit hires a lot of LGBTQ in terms of hiring, where you don't get those opportunities otherwise in the mainstream industries. So put together, the times have changed, and believe me, hospitality would be the first one to learn from there.
Great insights there. So tell us something about your experience at Caesar Ritz College in Switzerland.
Honestly, I just completed bachelor's in computers. I didn't really plan for that. I didn't even know that it was one of the best universities in Switzerland. I happened to attend a seminar by them in Hyderabad, and they kind of spoke very nicely about how hospitality is looking at, what kind of opportunities you would have. And I think, as fate would have, I've just applied, and they've had a couple of written tests and interviews, and then they picked us up. I honestly did not know where to go. I was a young man who, without any knowledge, would go in. But Caesar Ritz has been completely life-changing as an experience to me. One, because of the global exposure you would get. So we had people from everywhere in the world, right from the US to Papua New Guinea to Vietnam to Chinese to Koreans to a lot of Indians, Pakistanis, South Asians, a lot of Romanians. So that kind of cultural immersion is very important for you to understand what your core strengths are and what to work upon, apart from education. So education, they start with as basic as serving someone. Serve on water and with humility and start smiling in tough situations. That's from a character building standpoint. But also, I never knew that hospitality has so much of depth in learning. We used to look at hospitality from outside and think it's just on-job training. You need to know how to serve. That's not how it is. It's a lot of science behind it, and where to put in your rooms, what kind of rooms would sell, what kind of rates would sell. That's the largest revenues that you would earn. What kind of F&B would run. Would people like specific food? Would they not like food? The culinary, if you look at the advancements in F&B space, it's been fantastic. This was taught to us back in 2003. That we're implementing now. So over the years, I think it got matured and got widely accepted. But Caesar Ritz, being part of the Ritz-Carlton group, the pioneer of in terms of hospitality, I got a lot of both personal enrichment and professional enrichment as well.
Wow.
I still carry friends from there, so we make it a point to meet, understand where each one of us is going, and being in thick and thin.
Right. That's nice. So how cheap was living in Switzerland?
Really very cheap compared to how it is right now.
Right.
I've completed my master's, I think, within 8 lakh rupees.
Oh, wow.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
That then the accommodation is part of it.
Right.
The rest of it would be about probably 1.5 lakh or 2.
Per year or per month?
2 years.
Okay. You did your graduation in 10 lakh rupees. Like, what college was that? Right now, people are telling us if you're planning a couple of days trip into Switzerland, it seems like 1 lakh rupees is not enough.
I mean, for my education, I spend about 1.5 lakh per year now.
Right.
I mean, I'm talking about 2003 and 4, but still, I mean, it was also no mobile zone, not the internet era. So a discussion, a lot of hiking. We used to hike up on mountains and come. I mean, there's nothing that you would spend on otherwise except for food and going around. Not very expensive as if you go now with the current generation, and I'm sure you're things too.
Right. So how would you speak to your parents back then?
We had a ISD kind of a booth in Switzerland. So
right.
Yeah, I used to collect the coins or a calling card. So we had both of them. So calling card would primarily give you 300 minutes, and I would tell that I'd be calling at this time, and I'd call them up, and we'll time it up. Okay, 60 minutes is what we'll use out of this.
Right.
And I'll call you next week and stuff like that. Interesting times.
Right. We feel nostalgic about that time. Our parents get nostalgic about making the trunk call. Like it used to be a very completely different thing. Society changed so rapidly, right? What we saw in 2003, 2004, the society is absolutely different. And you know what scares me or what makes me feel really old? Like I started my first venture when I was 14 in 2004, like somewhere around that age. So somebody born in 2004 have the right to vote, right?
That's the
Right. The other day I realized, whoa, man. There was this guy I was hiring, and I was like, this guy was born after we were planning for an internship, right? This guy was born after I thought of my first business idea. And yeah, that was a crazy thought. So yeah, moving on, let's discuss about emerging technologies. You shared a brief intro about conversational AI, like helping hoteliers, customer queries, and improve their experience. Any other specific trend or emerging trend that you feel in the hotel technology industry that hoteliers should pay attention to?
So, as an underlying technology, there is always the artificial intelligence and machine learning. But how do you use that technology is also very important. So, I always say that there are 5 key stakeholders that hospitality should ideally look at. Consumers, of course. So, how is the consumer getting affected? Is the communication getting a little more easier with the client? Are you able to communicate properly? Are you still on NP engines where you need to train them, or are you wanting to look at giving them a more generative AI to understand what the requirements are? Also the employees. So a lot of times what we've understood, while the adoption of technology itself is very low in the hospitality industry. For that, what we've done from an RMS standpoint as an initiative is to get an RMS university. So we send out the courses, we encourage the people to do courses and get their credits so that when they sit for annual appraisal, they'll be able to see how many courses have you done and what have you learned, etc. From an adoption standpoint, from an employee engagement standpoint. Also, how hotels work typically is the hotel as a building is owned by someone.
Right.
Managed by someone. So these are all professional hotel management companies across the world. If you look at Hilton's and the Hyatt's and the Starwoods, so somebody owns the real estate as an asset and somebody else manages with obviously the revenue share that would go ahead. The management companies to bring in loyalty. Now, one consumer going to UK should be able to use those points to get those discounts or set off against their bills in India. So how is technology putting that in? So if loyalty is now global, so are you able to use your own hotel's loyalty instead of falling on a third-party loyalty? We work very extensively and hoteliers have started accepting it from a hotel management stand. But the hotel owner itself, so hotel owners bears the largest brunt of costing.
Right.
Now, you do not know that how much of the wastage is something that you're spending on. So your procurement comes in and it just lies there. And if you do not have enough clients on specific, so I mean, this is where I learned from FMCG as an industry. So there is a fantastic blockchain that you would create and understand what are your supply loopholes and where do you cover that up and what is your forecasting in terms of your occupancy. And accordingly, the procurement takes over to procure it properly. So even if you can cut down on a 10 or 15% on your bottom line, that's a great saving for a hotel ownership. That's something that I would ideally tell all the hoteliers that this is something that you should ideally look at. The last one that actually impacts is the tourism itself. I've been a strong advocate that hoteliers should also sell the nearby. So if somebody is going to Coorg, you would only want to go to your hotel, you probably do a couple of places, take some pictures and come back. But I've been an advocate that you should also take your tourism ecosystem forward in terms of telling what is Coorg known for. I mean, if the spices needs to come in, the consumers should be made aware that this is something that you would want to look at. Primarily for a tourist attraction, not so much from a business standpoint, but I think that is one of the key stakeholders. And if technology can come in to help, that'd be one of the wonderful steps to come in.
Wow, great insights there. One of the things people are now asking and saying that AI will be able to do is extreme personalization for a particular customer. So exactly understanding, is it the person coming with the family, or is it like a solo traveler? Is it a male or is it a female, or now third gender as well? So what kind of suggestions and what kind of experiences would make them feel better? So what are your thoughts on this?
Although the AI has different sort of product lines, but I think conversational and generative are broadly used within the consumer facing roles. If you can mix both of them together, if I can put an example of somebody visiting a particular place, they do not know anything, probably they'd want to go to Kashmir, right?
Right.
Of questions as a consumer would have. How is the climate there? Should I carry warm clothes? Should I carry cold clothes? Should I carry my snow boots? What are the nearby attractions? Can you make an itinerary for me? If I come to Kashmir, where are the places that I would go? And this, I think, is going to be the future. Obviously, the AI would start learning as a personal need. So hyper-personalization is part of AI, which if utilized properly, will be able to tell you that, look, you're going there and proactively go get a message that the climate is going to be cold. Would you want to carry your winter clothing? These are the nearby spots that you'd want. And if they express that their dietary restrictions at one place is they're allergic to some sort of nuts or lactose intolerant, it is both ways, not just the consumer, but the hoteliers also benefit out of it. I mean, when they get information about the person who's coming in, not probably sensitive information, but something that they would ideally want to share, that these are the requirements that I might have. And this is what my comfort lies in terms of soft beds to soft pillows. So all these are shared. So you are aware that this is how a person would come at. Not just that, I mean, including the AC and the channels that you'd want to look at. So we've deployed one of the technology in UAE where you would hyper-personalize the lighting, you would hyper-personalize your AC, you hyper-personalize your channels that you'd want to look at. If you're looking at CNN more often than any other channel, as soon as you enter, the TV gets switched on, goes to CNN, the temperature sets at 24, and obviously not being too intrusive whenever you wish to look at the menu that's available on the pad. And it kind of pops up that these are the menus with lactose intolerant, so you'd want to look at anything else. So the intelligence when it comes to action is the melting pot. So that's where we would want to invest on. And I think to a large extent, the luxury hotels have started doing it.
Right.
I mean, the budget hotels will soon start as well. So you would have a lot of hyper-personalization. I'm happy as long as it's not intrusive and sensitive information not being shared.
Absolutely. Makes sense. You may be not the right person to ask, but I wanted to cross-check with you this hack that I have recently learned is that if you want to book a hotel room for this weekend, Wednesday is the best day to do that. And if you want to do it for a flight, the Tuesday is the best day to do that. Is it true? And how does that work?
It is. So it's going to change. Whatever you're going to do, it'll only work for a few more months, if not years. Because the revenue management team sits on the revenue. They understand their demand and start making those changes every Wednesday.
Right.
And the review happens every Monday. So they'll have a next Monday to come back to. So
Right.
obviously your flights, if the availability is there, I mean, if you've got 150-seater aircraft and it's only 40% full, you'd want to sell it at a lower price. So as soon as you hit a threshold, then they will increase that price to a next level. Why am I saying it's going to change is today, a lot of rate automation tools are being deployed, which does not require any manual intervention. So as soon as they understand the forecast, the system will come back and say, these clicks are happening. These are the number of clicks that are coming onto this route. You obviously increase your rate. And when it comes full-fledged, the Tuesdays and Wednesdays would go. But one thing will remain. Try and book as soon as you can. So 15 days out is called early bird within the hospitality terms of 15 days from the date of travel, you get a discount. And last minute. So 48 hours, even the flights work that way. So if they inventory, they probably discounted to giving you the best fares.
Right. Makes sense. You spoke about price automation and extreme personalization. One of the things that people get worried, and there's a myth going around that the same hotel from the same platform is priced differently for two different people. Is it true? Does this thing happen?
It is. It's like the airliners now. I mean, the next seat would probably sell at a much higher price to your seat. And also for a reason. It's just not increase in the price. It's also a lot of times decrease in the price. For example, if there is a weekend where there's no demand, obviously with the price. So it depends on what kind of forecasting is happening on those dates. So worrying is absolutely fine, but I'm sure it's got two sides to it. So
okay, as we're running out of time, we'll jump right back into the rapid fire round. So you have to answer very quickly. First question, coffee or tea?
I'm always a tea person.
Right. Favorite travel destination?
Been Dubai for some time.
Right.
I really like the way they changed their attitude towards Indians. They give a lot of respect nowadays.
That's nice. Early bird or night owl?
I'm early to bird, early to get up. So been working like this when I was 6. So I'm an old school thought. So
Your parents must be proud.
yeah.
So next question, one word to describe your leadership style.
I think I'm both accommodative and strategic. I wish to be that way because a lot of times I feel that decisions usually should not hurt anyone. I mean, if you can afford everyone, that'd be great.
Awesome. iOS or Android?
Laptop, MacBook, phone is Android. So
same here.
yeah.
Like, I don't understand. Like, I love my laptop more than I love my phone. But besides the point, favorite book you have ever read?
I read a lot of books, both fiction, non-fiction. Non-fiction has been my genre. I would recommend The Legacy by James Kerr. It's about the wins of All Blacks in New Zealand in terms of rugby team, the ups and downs that the team has gone through and, how they sustained. Very interesting book.
Wow. last question, beach vacation or mountain retreat?
I am a jungle person. I won't forest. I'd probably be in a tent there. Got a lot of clients who are from this jungle resort. So
Right. So, Vivek, thanks a lot for joining us on the podcast today. Thanks for sharing all your management insights and also industry insider information to our listeners. It was really entertaining and informative.
thanks, Arvind. Pleasure is mine. Thank you so much. Shiran.
So, that's it. To our listeners, thanks a lot for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Vivek and his insights have been eye-opening. We are really grateful for his time. Listeners, remember that innovation is the heartbeat of hospitality and sales industry. Whether you are a seasoned hotelier or an aspiring professional, Vivek's wisdom has given us much to ponder. Before I sign off, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your feedback fuels our passion to bring you more thought-provoking content. Until the next time, keep innovating and keep listening to your users. This is your host Avinash Tripathi signing off.